Cancel his rehab, save the money. The words drifted through the quiet hospital room as clearly as if someone had shouted them into my ear. My wife Melissa was still holding my hand. Anyone walking past the doorway would have thought she was a devoted wife praying beside her injured husband. Then she leaned closer. So much money for therapy when he'll probably never recover. It's pointless. My chest screamed. Not from pain, from betrayal. A second voice followed. Tyler, my 34-year-old stepson. He chuckled under his breath. I'll take his mansion. I've always wanted to remodel it anyway. Melissa laughed softly. We'll wait until everything's official. I've already got plans for the place, Tyler replied. The garage alone is worth more than most people's houses. Neither of them noticed the tear that escaped the corner of my eye. They thought I couldn't hear. They thought I couldn't understand. Most importantly, they thought I couldn't remember. They were wrong. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 62 years old, and until 3 days ago, I believed I had built a life most people only dream about. I built neighborhoods across North Carolina, not luxury skyscrapers in Manhattan, not casinos in Las Vegas, neighborhoods. Places where teachers, firefighters, electricians, nurses, and retired couples could afford beautiful homes. For nearly 35 years, I worked before sunrise and came home after dark. I wasn't born wealthy. My father drove a delivery truck. My mother cleaned motel rooms outside Charlotte. Everything I owned had been earned one brick at a time, including the 3-story stone mansion overlooking Lake Norman. People often assumed I loved the house because it was expensive. Truthfully, it reminded me how far my parents' sacrifices had carried me. Then 3 days ago, a pickup truck ignored a red light. I never even saw it coming. The doctors later told me my SUV rolled twice before crashing into a concrete barrier. Multiple fractures, internal injuries, a traumatic brain injury, a stroke during emergency surgery. When I finally opened my eyes, my body refused to obey me. I couldn't speak, couldn't lift my arms, couldn't even turn my head. The machines surrounding my bed made more noise than I could. And somehow, that silence became the greatest advantage of my life. Earlier that morning, I had heard Dr. Patel speaking quietly outside my room. The swelling is improving, he told Melissa. Mr. Carter understands more than we originally believed. Will he recover, she asked. We don't know. He'll need months of aggressive rehabilitation. Months. That single word carried hope. To me, apparently not to my wife. The doctor continued. It'll be difficult, but patience with determination sometimes surprise us. Melissa thanked him politely. She even cried. I heard every sniffle, every shaky breath, every perfect performance. The second the doctor walked away, she became someone I no longer recognized. Their footsteps disappeared down the hallway. Silence settled over the room once again. A minute later, the door opened. Soft footsteps. Not Melissa. Not Tyler. Emily, my private nurse. She had been assigned because my doctors believed one-on-one care would improve my chances. She couldn't have been older than 35. Kind eyes. Calm voice. The type of nurse who explained everything she was doing even when she assumed the patient couldn't answer. Good afternoon, Mr. Carter, she said gently. I'm going to check your IV. She adjusted the tubing, checked the monitor, then stopped. I know that look. Her voice dropped. I think you're awake. I forced every ounce of strength into opening my eyes wider. She leaned closer. Can you understand me? I blinked once. Her eyebrows lifted. Oh. She glanced toward the hallway before returning her attention to me. If you understand me, blink twice. I did. Her hand froze over the blanket. My goodness. She whispered so quietly I almost missed it. They said you weren't responding. I blinked again. Tears filled her eyes. Don't worry. I'm not telling anyone until we know exactly what you want. Exactly. What? First. Wanted? The words echoed through my mind. For the first time since the accident, someone was asking me, not talking over me, not deciding my future, asking me. There was one problem. I couldn't speak, not even a whisper. Emily seemed to understand my frustration. Can you move anything? Nothing. My fingers refused. My legs were gone from my awareness. Only my eyes remained dependable. Then, an old memory surfaced. My younger sister, Sarah, born profoundly deaf. Our parents couldn't afford private schools, so they learned American Sign Language with her. I learned too. I was only 10. For years, we talked across crowded rooms without making a sound. I hadn't used ASL regularly in decades, but muscle memory is a remarkable thing. I focused every ounce of energy into my right hand. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Emily noticed the smallest twitch in my index finger. She leaned forward. Try again. The finger moved. Barely. Enough. Pain shot through my arm. Again. Slowly. Painfully. My thumb shifted. Then my index finger. Emily watched without breathing. You, she whispered. You're trying to sign. Relief flooded through me. She understood. I closed my eyes from exhaustion. When I opened them again, she was smiling. I know a little ASL. My younger brother is deaf. For the first time since waking, hope replaced fear. It wasn't much, but it was enough. One careful movement at a time, I formed the closest thing I could manage to a single word. Lawyer. Emily stared. You want your attorney? I blinked twice. She looked toward the hallway. Does your family know you're communicating? I blinked once. No. Do you want them to know? Again. One blink. No. She nodded immediately. I understand. There wasn't an ounce of hesitation in her voice. She wasn't judging. She wasn't asking why. She simply accepted that I had a reason. Then she surprised me. I'll help you. That evening, Melissa returned carrying flowers. She kissed my forehead. I'm here, sweetheart. Her perfume almost made me sick. Tyler followed behind carrying coffee. I talked to the insurance company, he announced. They'll probably fight some of the rehab costs. Melissa sighed dramatically. We'll cross that bridge later. I wanted to laugh. Not because anything was funny, because neither of them realized the bridge had already collapsed beneath their feet. Emily entered a few minutes later to check my medications. She never looked at me, never hinted that anything had changed. She played her role perfectly. Professional, calm, invisible. Exactly what we needed. Melissa eventually gathered her purse. We'll come back tomorrow. Tyler nodded. Get some rest, Daniel. The door closed behind them. Emily waited until their footsteps faded. Then she quietly pulled a small phone from her pocket. I found the emergency contact listed before your wife. She looked at me. Michael Lawson. I blinked twice. She smiled. I'm calling him. She stepped into the hallway. Less than a minute later, I heard a man's voice through the speaker. This is Michael Lawson. Emily took a slow breath. Mr. Lawson? She glanced back toward my room. Mr. Carter is awake, and he has something very important to tell you. I barely slept that night. Not because of the pain. Pain medication kept most of that under control. It was my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Melissa's voice. Cancel his rehab, save the money. Then Tyler's smug reply. I'll take his mansion. For years, I'd worried about losing my business, losing money, losing my health. I never imagined the greatest loss would be discovering the people sitting beside my hospital bed had already begun celebrating my funeral. And around 7 the next morning, Emily quietly entered my room carrying a cup of coffee. Not for me, for herself. She smiled as though nothing unusual had happened. Good morning, Mr. Carter. She checked my blood pressure, adjusted my blanket, then leaned close enough that no one outside the room could hear. Mr. Lawson is coming. I blinked twice. He'll arrive before your wife gets here. Another blink. Emily understood every answer without making me exhaust myself. She had become my voice less than 12 hours after meeting me. That kind of trust isn't built overnight. But sometimes tragedy introduces you to exactly the person you need. At 8:15, an older man wearing a navy suit walked into my room, carrying nothing but a leather briefcase. Michael Lawson, my attorney, my friend for 28 years. We'd built companies together, closed hundreds of property deals. He'd helped me write every version of my will since my first wife Linda passed away from breast cancer almost 15 years earlier. The moment he saw my eyes open, his shoulders relaxed. My God, he stepped beside my bed. I was preparing myself to say goodbye. I wanted to smile. Instead, I blinked. Emily quietly closed the room's blinds. I've already explained everything I observed yesterday, she told Michael. He understands everything. Michael nodded, but he can't speak. Emily looked toward me. Not with words, she gently lifted my right hand. Mr. Carter, can you show him? I concentrated. The effort felt like trying to lift a truck using a single finger. Slowly, my thumb moved, then my index finger. Pain shot through my arm. Again. Another movement. Michael frowned. Is he? Emily smiled. American Sign Language. His eyes widened. I completely forgot. He looked back at me. Sarah. I blinked twice. He remembered my sister. Everyone who truly knew me remembered Sarah. Melissa never bothered to learn a single sign. She always said she'd never have a reason. Life has an incredible sense of irony. It took nearly 20 minutes for me to communicate one complete sentence. Emily interpreted patiently. Michael wrote everything down. The first sentence I signed was simple. My wife wants me to die. Michael immediately shook his head. Daniel, that's a serious accusation. I painfully continued. Emily translated. She told Tyler to cancel rehabilitation because it costs too much. Another pause. They discussed dividing your property. Michael's face slowly changed. He wasn't skeptical anymore. He knew me. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't impulsive. If I was accusing someone, there was a reason, Emily quietly added. I heard none of it personally. But when I found Mr. Carter awake yesterday, he specifically asked for you before anyone else. Michael slowly removed his glasses. Tell me everything. For nearly an hour, I signed. One exhausting movement after another. Every word Melissa had whispered. Every sentence Tyler had spoken. Every detail I could remember. By the end, Michael's notebook was filled. He leaned back in his chair. I've represented wealthy families for over 30 years. I've seen children sue parents, brothers steal inheritances, business partners destroy lifelong friendships. But this, he looked at me, this is different. He opened his briefcase. Before we do anything, we need to review your estate. That sentence alone reminded me why I'd hired Michael decades earlier. He never reacted emotionally. He solved problems. He spread several documents across the small hospital table. My first question, did Melissa ever pressure you into changing ownership of your companies? I blinked once. No. Did she become a shareholder? Again, no. What about the Carter family trust? No. He smiled for the first time that morning. Good. Emily looked confused. Michael explained quietly. Daniel built everything before this marriage. The trust owns most of his major assets. The mansion, the development companies, the investment properties, the lakefront land. Melissa lives in those homes. She doesn't own them. Relief washed over me. At least one version of myself had remained cautious. Michael continued. The joint checking account contains enough money to tempt someone. But compared to your total estate, he smiled faintly. It's pocket change. Emily looked surprised. So legally, she doesn't inherit everything. Michael chuckled. Not even close. But then his expression became serious again. But there's another issue. He turned toward me. If Melissa truly believes you're mentally incapacitated, she may try to gain conservatorship. My heartbeat quickened. He continued. Once someone controls medical decisions, they often gain tremendous influence over financial matters. Emily folded her arms. Can she do that? Not if Daniel is mentally competent. Michael tapped the notebook. And not if we move first. He began outlining possible legal options, emergency court filings, medical evaluations, temporary financial restrictions, protective orders. Everything sounded logical. Everything sounded fast. Yet something inside me resisted. I slowly lifted my hand. Emily watched carefully. No. Michael frowned. No. I continued signing. Slowly. Painfully. Need proof. He stared at me. You already have your testimony? Again I signed. Not enough. He understood. If Melissa denied everything, it would become my word against hers. No jury, no family, no judge should have to wonder who was telling the truth. I wanted certainty. I wanted the truth exposed so completely that no one could ever rewrite what happened. Michael leaned back, then smiled. I think I know exactly what you're planning. Around 10:30, Melissa arrived carrying homemade blueberry muffins. She smiled brightly at everyone. Oh, Michael. I didn't know you were here. He stood politely. I wanted to check on an old friend. Melissa wiped an imaginary tear from her cheek. It's heartbreaking. I don't know what I'd do without him. I watched her performance from my hospital bed. If the Academy Awards had a category for grieving spouses, she deserved a nomination. Tyler wandered in behind her wearing sunglasses indoors. Morning. He barely looked at me. Instead, he turned toward Michael. So, how's all the legal stuff? Michael answered casually. Nothing to discuss. Tyler shrugged. Guess we'll wait. Exactly. They would wait because they still believed I was trapped inside a broken body with no way to fight back. Emily quietly adjusted my IV. As she walked away, our eyes met for less than a second. No smile, no signal, nothing anyone else would notice. But I knew. The game had already begun. That afternoon, after Melissa and Tyler left for lunch, Emily returned holding my tablet. She had connected it to my home's private security system. A notification flashed across the screen. Motion detected. Location. Carter residence. Home office. Emily's expression tightened. She looked at me, then slowly signed. Someone is removing documents from your house. I stared at the screen for several long seconds. Then, despite the pain ripping through my arm, I signed two simple words. Emily swallowed. You want me to let them? I blinked twice. She nodded slowly, then repeated my words aloud. Let them. Because sometimes the fastest way to expose a thief is to let him believe no one is watching. By the end of the first week, everyone believed I was exactly where they wanted me. Broken, silent, dependent. That illusion became my greatest weapon. The doctor saw a patient making slow progress after a catastrophic accident. Melissa saw a husband who would never question another credit card statement. Tyler saw an inheritance with a heartbeat. Only 3 people knew the truth. Emily, Michael, and me. The next Monday morning, Michael arrived carrying another leather briefcase. This time he looked almost cheerful. I've spent the weekend reviewing everything. He closed the door behind him before speaking again. Daniel, you built your empire like a man who never trusted luck. I blinked. He opened several folders. 23 LLCs, 4 holding companies, the Carter Family Trust, and 3 separate investment partnerships. Emily looked impressed. I had no idea. Michael smiled. Most people don't. He turned toward me. You always said one lawsuit shouldn't be able to destroy a lifetime of work. I remembered saying exactly that nearly 20 years earlier. Back then it had sounded overly cautious. Now it was saving my life. Melissa only has unrestricted access to the joint household account. He paused. Everything else requires your approval. I blinked twice. Good. However, his smile disappeared. Someone has already tried. He slid a document across the bedside table. Emily picked it up. What is this? A request to transfer corporate voting rights. She frowned. Who submitted it? Michael answered calmly. A law firm. But not mine. He looked directly at me. They claimed your condition made you permanently incompetent. My heartbeat jumped. Emily looked horrified. They've only been in the hospital a week. Michael nodded. Exactly. They're moving much faster than grieving families usually do. I slowly raised my hand. One painful movement at a time. Who hired them? Michael sighed. We're confirming that now. But I have a strong suspicion. Neither of us needed to say her name. Well, later that afternoon, Melissa walked into my room carrying fresh flowers. White lilies. My late wife Linda had hated lilies. Melissa knew that. She had simply forgotten. Or maybe she no longer cared enough to remember. She kissed my forehead. You look peaceful today. I stared at the ceiling. She sat beside my bed. I've been taking care of everything. Our bills, the house, the business calls. I don't want you worrying. Her voice sounded warm, comforting, almost believable. Then her phone vibrated. She stepped into the hallway to answer. Emily happened to be checking my medication cart just outside. When Melissa disappeared around the corner, Emily quietly looked toward me. I'll be right back, she followed. Not close enough to be obvious. Just close enough. 5 minutes later, she returned. I heard enough. She lowered her voice. She was talking to someone named Grant. She said, Emily hesitated. The paperwork should be ready before he's discharged. Another pause. No, he doesn't understand anything. I closed my eyes. Not because I was surprised, because hearing it still hurt. That evening, Michael brought someone new. A silver-haired woman wearing jeans boots and a navy blazer. This is Rebecca Hayes, licensed private investigator. Rebecca smiled politely. I've worked with Michael for years. She looked at me. And I don't believe coincidences, Michael explained. I hired her yesterday. Rebecca opened a thin notebook. Your wife has developed a routine. Every morning, coffee shop, fitness club, hospital. Every afternoon, several unexplained meetings downtown. Every evening, dinner with Tyler. She turned another page. Yesterday, they met with a luxury realtor. Emily frowned. A realtor. Rebecca nodded. They toured your mansion. She slid several photographs across the table. Melissa stood on the front lawn laughing. Tyler pointed toward the detached garage. Another photo showed them walking through my home with a well-dressed couple. The realtor carried blueprints. My stomach twisted. They weren't waiting for me to die. They were already planning the renovations. Over the next several days, Rebecca's file became thicker. Tyler ordered custom furniture. Melissa met twice with a financial advisor she'd never used before. A moving company visited the mansion. The excuse, future remodeling. Meanwhile, no one visited me except Emily and Michael. Melissa shortened her visits from an hour to 30 minutes, then 20. One afternoon, she stayed less than 8 minutes. Before leaving, she kissed my forehead. I miss your smile. The door closed. Emily looked at me. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. There was one thing Melissa never bothered to ask about. My rehabilitation. Because she assumed it wasn't happening. Officially, it wasn't. Unofficially, Emily had arranged something entirely different. Every evening after visiting hours ended, she wheeled a physical therapist named Kevin into my room. Kevin had retired from the VA hospital system 2 years earlier. Emily trusted him completely. So, Kevin said with a grin during our first session, I hear you're stubborn. I blinked twice. Emily laughed. That's his way of saying yes. The exercises were brutal. My fingers cramped. My shoulder burned. Every attempt to move my left leg felt like dragging concrete uphill. More than once I wanted to quit. Kevin never let me. You built neighborhoods. I blinked. Then build this. He tapped my arm. One muscle, one movement. One day, I hated him for saying it. Then I started believing him. 2 weeks passed. I could now lift 3 fingers. My right arm responded more consistently. I even managed a crooked smile one afternoon. Emily clapped like I'd won an Olympic medal. That's huge, she laughed. You have no idea. Actually, I did. Every tiny improvement meant one thing. Melissa's timetable was getting shorter. Mine was getting stronger. Rebecca's investigation continued. One Friday evening, she arrived carrying a small flash drive. I think you'll want to see this. Michael plugged it into a laptop. Security footage appeared on the screen. A private dining room inside an upscale steakhouse in Charlotte. Hidden camera angle. No audio at first. Then, the sound began. Melissa lifted a wine glass. I honestly thought he'd die that first night. Tyler laughed. So did I. A man's voice spoke. Likely the realtor. What happens if he recovers? Melissa shrugged. He won't. The doctor said rehabilitation takes months. Tyler leaned back. And we're making sure that never happens. Silence filled my hospital room. Rebecca folded her arms. I've already preserved copies. Michael didn't speak. Neither did Emily. I stared at the screen. Every doubt disappeared. Every excuse vanished. There it was. Not suspicion. Not misunderstanding. Choice. They had chosen greed. Again, and again, and again. Rebecca reached into her folder one last time. I have something else. She pressed another button. A different recording began. This one came from the hidden camera inside my own home office. Melissa stood beside my desk. She thought she was alone. She smiled, then quietly said the sentence that changed everything. The sooner he dies, she looked toward Tyler, the sooner we're free. No one in the room moved. Not even Emily. Michael slowly closed the laptop. He looked at me for a long moment, then finally spoke. Daniel, I think we have all the proof we'll ever need. I looked at him, then at Emily, then slowly raised my trembling hand. One sign, one decision. Not yet, because I wasn't interested in winning quietly. I wanted the truth. To walk into the light. 3 weeks after the accident, I stopped measuring time by dates. I measured it by victories. The first time I lifted my right hand without help. The first time I stood for 5 seconds beside the hospital bed. The first time I managed to swallow without coughing. Each tiny achievement felt invisible to everyone except the people who truly cared. Emily celebrated every one of them. Kevin pushed me through every painful step. Michael quietly built the legal foundation beneath us. Meanwhile, Melissa and Tyler continued building their fantasy. They believed they had already won. Whoa. One Tuesday morning, Emily wheeled me into the rehabilitation room before sunrise. The hospital halls were almost empty. Only a few nurses exchanged sleepy greetings as we passed. Kevin was already waiting. So he said, folding his arms, "Today's the day." I looked at him. He grinned. "You're walking." Emily smiled. "He doesn't look convinced." "I don't care if he believes it," Kevin replied. "His legs are ready." Mine certainly didn't feel ready. The parallel bars looked a mile apart. Kevin locked the wheelchair. Stand. Simple word. Impossible task. Emily slipped one arm around my back. Kevin steadied my left shoulder. I pushed. Nothing. Again, every muscle in my body protested. Then, my knees straightened. For the first time since the accident, I was standing. Only for a moment. But I was standing. Emily laughed through tears. "I knew you could do it." Kevin didn't smile. "One step." I stared at him. He pointed forward. Just one. My right foot moved. Barely 6 inches. Then my left. Pain exploded through my hip. Sweat rolled down my face. I almost collapsed. Kevin caught me. "What did I tell you?" I took another step. Then another. When we finally reached the end of the bars, I realized Emily was crying openly. "I've watched miracles before," she whispered, "but never one this stubborn." I wanted to tell her she had saved my life. Instead, I squeezed her hand. She understood. She always did. That afternoon, Michael arrived carrying several thick folders.